Well, this was a massive, massive day of 49ers coverage, and I woke up thinking that I'd have the day off. How wrong I was, but a visit to Kyle Shanahan's office later that involved a trip down away here from San Francisco to Santa Clara. We also have two signings to report on. Quinton Bell, one of the 49ers' two signings, and KJ Henry. Both players are defensive ends in a 4-3 context and outside linebackers in a 3-4 context. And I have to mention both of the contexts because the 49ers are going to play both types of defense. This is Quinton Bell and this is KJ Henry. Both have been with multiple teams. Both are between 255 and 260 pounds. And both have really interesting backgrounds. In fact, Quinton Bell played wide receiver throughout his first 3 years of college. So we're talking about an edge rusher, but he played wide receiver his first 3 years of college. I talk about this so much, the fascinating, absolutely fascinating evolution of the edge rusher position. This is why offensive lines across the entire league struggle as much as they do, because edge rushers and their athleticism has proliferated and out-proliferated whatever's happening on the offensive line and the athleticism there. And the reason is the talent is coming from the truly athletic positions. Guys who used to be developed as receivers have been moved to the defensive line to play along the edge, and they bulk up a little bit, but they're coming in with insane speed, insane quickness, and the offensive linemen just have not been able to keep up. So the 49ers, remember that Andrew Farmer II, who's one of their defensive end / outside linebackers, he hurt his back. He's going to be out for a little bit of time. They might even waive him to make room on the 90-man roster here. Quinton Bell takes his place, and then there might be another injury. We saw that Romelo Height, who plays this tweener position, this defensive end outside linebacker position, he was actually carted off the practice field the other day. And they said that it was cramps, but if it was something more, if Romelo Height's going to miss any practice time, the 49ers will need somebody else to take that position. So maybe that's where this second signing, KJ Henry, comes in. Either way, the 49ers worked out 4 of these guys, these defensive ends today, and they signed 2 of them. Also today, and this is up on the San Francisco Standard, I'm going to go ahead and give this link to Mike, and he's going to go ahead and put it in the description. So walked out the door today here. This is our new studio, by the way, in San Francisco. You can see the background there. Russian Hill, nice golden hour for us today as we talk about the 49ers. But we walked out, and we're pushing the stroller down the hill. We were going down to North Beach. I thought I was going to get myself a nice not a bacon, egg, and cheese. I was going to get a lox and cream cheese bagel today from Cafe Angelo. They're down there on Columbus and Green. Place is elite. I shouldn't tell you guys because the line's going to be too long. But I was ready for a leisurely day. And all of a sudden, we hear from the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan, hey, come on down. Kyle Shanahan wants to talk in his office. So I headed down to Santa Clara today. I took an Uber all the way down to Santa Clara. And I wrote about everything that Kyle Shanahan said. In summary, this is not good for the conspiracy theorists because it'd be the first cover-up of all time in which the main subject admits guilt. But Kyle Shanahan said, I took my eyes off the road looking for my phone, and he said that he caused the collision in this accident. Keyword being, this was an accident. The police department has consistently and repeatedly said that there were no drugs or alcohol involved. Thankfully, the other driver was not hurt. It is unfortunate that a lot of people have needed to satisfy a voracious need for clicks and maybe $20 at a time from X or whatever platform pays them to go out and just make stuff up. But unfortunately, because of that insane turn that this story has taken because of social media, Kyle Shanahan had to go out there and correct the clerical error, which happened because this accident moved from the Palo Alto police report to the state of California database. And he had to say, it was actually my fault, guys. I don't want the other driver to be unfairly targeted or unfairly presumed that they were at fault in this situation. So I actually think that it was very big of Kyle Shanahan to do that, to take public blame here in a situation where, quite frankly, he didn't have to. Could have just let this ride out, and the clerical error would have stayed the clerical error, and the people who dug into the clerical error probably wouldn't dig into it anymore. Now that clerical error will be fixed. Maybe it would have been fixed anyway. Who knows? But at least the conspiracy theories, at least those based in any semblance of rationality, are now dead. This is up on the San Francisco Standard. You can go ahead and check out the link. It is in the description. Now to the 49ers and the two signings. I want to open up the 90-man depth chart, and then maybe we can open this up for questions. But the depth chart is going to allow us to understand where exactly these signings do fit in. So it's Quinton Bell and KJ Henry. Now, the 49ers, to make these official tomorrow morning, and they will before practice, are going to have to make a couple of roster moves, because even if you're hurt, you count against the 90-man roster. If you're put on injured reserve, you're done for the season. So sometimes the 49ers will waive players who don't have a really good chance at making the 53-man roster. They'll waive them with an injury designation and reach an injury settlement with those players. I think that is possible for somebody like Andrew Farmer II. So for now, I'm going to remove Andrew Farmer II from this roster, even though he technically still is on it, because I don't have room on this roster to add any of the two guys who the 49ers have reportedly agreed to terms with today. So we can create a special column down here for Andrew Farmer II. We're just going to put injured, but not injured reserve, because he's not technically on that list. And that way we don't forget his name, and we can cross-check this tomorrow. But just for the sake of what we're doing right now, we're going to put Quinton Bell into Andrew Farmer II's roster spot. And we can go ahead and highlight Quinton Bell there in teal. Now, the 49ers have one more, KJ Henry. And as you can see, I don't have much room. What I'm going to say, I'll move Cam Sample over here onto the 53-man roster, because there's a good chance that Cam Sample, a veteran, is going to make it onto this 49ers team. So what that will do is it will create a little bit of room for us to put KJ Henry, another free agent signing, onto this roster at the appropriate position. So there you go. Now the 49ers have Henry and Quinton Bell. We'll see what the deal with Romelo Height is. 49ers will hope that the rookie is looking good. But, you know, the first practice the other day, Romelo Height, one of the initial plays, split out to cover Christian McCaffrey. And it was something that we didn't see hardly any of in the first 9 years of the Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch regime. Robert Saleh was the defensive coordinator for much of that time. 4 down front, 3 linebackers. The edge rusher was going after the quarterback 98% of the time. It's probably going to be something like maybe 75% of the time moving forward under Raheem Morris. Now, that's a complete guess from me. We'll see how often somebody like Raheem Morris decides to run these variation pressures where he's splitting outside linebackers or edge rushers. Same thing, but it'll be a 5-man front that's more rooted in a 3-4. We'll see how often he decides to deploy them in coverage. You obviously don't want to do it all too often against Christian McCaffrey. You want to actually take quarterbacks off guard, and we'll see how effective the 49ers are in doing that with the new defensive system that Raheem Morris is introducing, that's going to install a whole lot of schematic wrinkles into things. But because of what they're running, the 49ers are going to go out and employ guys like KJ Henry, like Quinton Bell, obviously like Romelo Height, who they believe are flexible enough to do both things, who they believe are flexible enough to split out as an outside linebacker and also rush the passer. At this point, you need some camp bodies if you're the 49ers. So it makes a whole lot of sense why they brought these two players in. But as we know, and we saw last year with all of the 49ers injuries, there is a time when you run out of defensive linemen, when you run out of players in the front seven, and you better start developing guys sooner rather than later, so you never know who might get that call for San Francisco to actually perform on Sundays. All right, I'm going to open this up to questions. Those were the two signings that happened today. I know that we've been doing a lot of uploads from the field. Today I was uploading on my way back up the peninsula as I talked. We went to the actual accident site, Alma Street and Hamilton Avenue in downtown Palo Alto. Hopefully that helped you guys picture what exactly happened there. I'm glad that whole situation is now fully cleared up. And, if you want to take a look at the roster, I can answer all of your questions. We're dealing with a new lighting situation here, and I think that I can go ahead and turn off one of these lights, which was giving us an annoying reflection. I think it's going to look a whole lot better right now when I turn the screen back on. Yeah, that looks way better. Good. See, that's why we experiment with things. We got golden hour in San Francisco. You're looking down south. You're looking down toward where the 49ers play, which is, 50 miles away. Takes a little bit of time to get down there. Candlestick, a little bit closer, but I've got to make the drive. That's just how things work. Life isn't always fair. Vita Vea, that was something else that I was talking about this morning. Made the video on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defensive tackle who is here from the Bay Area, who is entering his final year under contract, who has requested a trade, and who wants to play for one of the three California teams or the Raiders, who obviously are in Las Vegas. That is because Vita Vea is from Milpitas. He was born at Stanford Hospital, went to Milpitas High School. Milpitas, for those of you unfamiliar with the Bay Area, Milpitas High School is 6.5 miles away from Levi's Stadium. So Vita Vea, who's one of the largest humans in the entire NFL, but also one of its most athletic. I mean, the guy is an absolute freak of nature. The guy is a stud. Vita Vea wants to play in California. I'm not sure if the Buccaneers will oblige him. I'm not sure when they will oblige him. If they do, they have until the trade deadline, obviously, to jettison Vita Vea this year, or they can offer him something that gets him to stay in Tampa Bay. But it sounds like he doesn't want to take a discount in Tampa Bay past the age of 30. It sounds like he wants to play closer to home, and maybe that's going to make things harder for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as they try to thread a needle. They also have to pay Baker Mayfield. Would Vita Vea fit on the 49ers? Of course he would fit on the 49ers. He'd fit anywhere. I saw somebody yesterday saying, oh, well, this is more of a three-down player. Well, the 49, like a 3-4 front, the 49ers are going to be running a lot of 3-4 principles, as I'm talking about with these additions today. Quinton Bell, KJ Henry. We talk about Romelo Height. We talk about Andrew Farmer. Talk about Raheem Morris. The 49ers are not going to be playing a standard 4-3 all the time this year. They very clearly are going to be running stuff that is based in a 3-4, like five-man fronts, with much more regularity in the 2026 season. That's been confirmed by Trent Williams, who's been practicing against these defenses. That has been confirmed by Raheem Morris himself. I think that if you talk to Nick Bosa, he's going to confirm that as well. The 49ers are going to be changing some things over the course and adding to their repertoire over the course of this 2026 season with a new defensive coordinator. So Vita Vea would be right at home. But I think that even if you're running a 4-3 on every single down, even if you're sticking with the Robert Saleh defense, Vita Vea is a perfect fit for anybody. Why? Because he is an elite run stopper. He's 347 pounds. He might be more than 347 pounds, and I say that in a complimentary way. The guy is massive. The guy can take up multiple blocks. He is a pain to deal with in the run game. In fact, ever since the Bucs drafted Vita Vea in the first round out of the University of Washington in 2018, they have been the second best run defense in football. They have consistently had one of the best run defenses in the entire NFL. Vita Vea is the reason for that. He came back for the Super Bowl in 2020, and the Bucs completely throttled the Kansas City Chiefs. Vita Vea was a massive part of that. But even while the guy is a, certified game destroyer on the inside against the run, most of those guys, the fire hydrants, they can't rush the passer. They're not athletic enough to stay on the field when it comes time to chase the quarterback. Vita Vea is. Vita Vea is more than athletic enough to stay on the field. He played running back at Milpitas, and the video that I put out this morning was him rampaging as a running back for Milpitas High School. Speaking of Palo Alto, I was there today. One of the highlights in that tape is at Palo Alto High School, and at Vita Vea dominating as a running back. So he's a unicorn in that he can be 350 pounds, but he could also move like somebody who's more like 300 pounds. And the 49ers already have Osa Odighizuwa, who's a lighter defensive tackle. He's about 290 pounds. I'm going to open up the roster again. Here you can see Osa Odighizuwa. They've got Alfred Collins, who is a 320-plus pounder. He's bigger. He's going to play more of the Vita Vea role, if you will. So is C.J. West. Grayson Halton got hurt the other day. I don't know if he's going to be out all too long. It's a bone bruise in his knee, so I wouldn't think that Grayson Halton is going to be out forever. But Alfred Collins probably going to be back toward the end of this week. I mean, you got two rookie, or Alfred Collins is a second-year guy, but you've got a lot of young players at defensive tackle. You already have a couple of injuries if you're the 49ers, and you've already had to sign Kevin Givens, who is a veteran defensive tackle, obviously very familiar with this football team, but obviously a player with a finite ceiling. You're coming off one of your worst pass rushing seasons ever, not just as a DT group, but as a defensive line. You also haven't defended the run very well over the course of the past couple of years. Of course, you're going to be interested in a superstar caliber player if he does indeed become available. Now, here comes the trick. The 49ers know how good this 2026 draft class is. 2027, I guess I should say, next season's draft class. It is, I mean, you never know for sure, but the early indications are that this class is filled with high-level talent. And premium picks are going to be very, very valuable. Teams aren't going to want to give up all too many premium picks in this 2027 draft. The 49ers also, everybody goes and says, well, they have so much cap space. They have the most 2026 salary cap space in the league. That is true, but salary cap space carries over from season to season if you don't use it. And the 49ers have actually intentionally created a lot of space here in 2026 to carry it over into 2027. Purdy gets a whole lot more expensive next year, right? George Kittle and Fred Warner, all those guys get a whole lot more expensive because their contracts escalate. So you have to have enough money to carry over into the future. The 49ers have an entire blueprint for this kind of stuff. Vita Vea is going to command a deal over $20 million, probably well over. The defensive tackle market goes up to $28 million now, and he thinks he's one of the best in the league. I wouldn't disagree with him. When you saw Dexter Lawrence traded from the Giants to the Bengals, it took the number 10 overall pick. Maybe Vita Vea comes at a cheaper price because he's a little bit older, but I'm not sure. The 49ers don't even have a number 10 overall pick to offer. They have a first rounder they could offer next year. Maybe the 49ers will say, well, hey, we can offer a first to Tampa Bay. And the 49ers could say, we think we're going to be really good. We think we could even win a Super Bowl. Maybe that number one pick is pick number 30 to 32. If you win the Super Bowl, it's pick number 32. In that case, it probably makes a whole lot more sense to offer that if you're the 49ers. But nobody knows exactly what that pick is going to be, and nobody knows exactly what Tampa Bay would want for Vita Vea or if he's even on the trade block. A few years ago, we would always scoff at situations like this, and we would say, they're going to work it out. Vita Vea and Tampa Bay, he'll sign a new deal. He's been there his whole career. How can that not work out? But recently, these trades have started to happen with greater and greater regularity. We just saw Myles Garrett go from the Browns to the Rams. We saw Dexter Lawrence, a fellow defensive tackle, the only one with more pressures than Vita Vea over the course of the past 3 seasons, by the way. But we've seen him go from the Giants to the Bengals. So these kinds of moves happen. Trades are happening more often in the NFL. I think front office executives are taking more risks. The 49ers have been one of the teams that has taken risks. Christian McCaffrey, by the way, is on this roster because of a trade. And I'm intrigued because the guy wants to play in California and he's not far from Levi's Stadium. It would be a financial risk from the 49ers, that's for sure. It would definitely make the team better because it's Vita Vea. And John Lynch, who used to play for Tampa Bay, just like Mike Evans, just like Vita Vea does now, he and Kyle Shanahan have talked often about making the defensive line as absolutely stacked as possible. There's no way that the 49ers could have even traded for Myles Garrett because they didn't have the trade ammo to outbid the Rams. But in the case of Vita Vea, they may actually have a chance in the sweepstakes if Tampa Bay does indeed put him on the block. So that's my analysis of the situation. I can't wait to watch it. And remember, we could be sitting here waiting for a while. There could be a trade tomorrow. I don't think that's likely. It's much more likely that something happens before the trade deadline. All right, I'm ready to answer some questions. I promised this about 10 minutes ago, but I went off on a Vita Vea tangent. Hope you guys don't mind that. And also, yes, smash the like button. That being said, we do have to hear from our sponsor. We got a sponsor for today's show. So I've got that coming up right now. You know me, I'm always looking to optimize, whether it be making some of these videos or swimming in either the San Francisco Bay or up in a high Sierra Lake. I want to make sure that rest turns into performance and then I'm feeling my best at all times. This is where I'm happy to tell you about Hone Health, the sponsor of today's show. I'm not a doctor, just sharing my experience. I can tell you that Hone connects you with a real licensed physician who can walk you through the benefits and the risks before starting anything. Get tested, get treated, get results. One test from Hone covers over 50 biomarkers, not just testosterone. Heart, hormones, thyroid, metabolic health, and more, so you actually know what's going on and not just guessing. Then an actual doctor reviews it with you and builds a plan, not just a report generated in an app. The plan can include a variety of treatments. DRT peptides might be at the top of your lists. Other supplements also available. All personalized and tailored based on your consultation with a physician. So get tested, get treated, and get back to feeling 100%. Get your test for $65. Link is in the bio. Hone Health. Remember, take ownership. That's so important to feeling your best and performing your best in whatever life is calling you to do. All right, back to the show here. We had that in Shaver Lake. Now we get this dusk in San Francisco. Ready to answer the questions. Vita Vea, Kyle Shanahan today, shutting down the conspiracies, or at least any conspiracies with any rational base, and two signings for the 49ers in Quinton Bell and KJ Henry. You can take a look at the roster now in its entirety for the 49ers. Obviously, a couple injuries to begin things over the course of the first 2 days. Today was a jog through for San Francisco. They will be back out there with an actual practice tomorrow, so another day in Santa Clara. Then a full day off on Thursday, allegedly. Hopefully we don't get called in again on Thursday, but a full day off on Thursday for the 49ers, followed by a weekend of practice. Maybe a jog through on one of those weekend days as well for the 49ers, but we'll keep our eyes on the health situation. We'll see. Isaac Guerendo's been running on the side field for the 49ers. We know Vidarian Lowe's going to be out for a bit. We'll see when Grayson Halton comes back. They might activate Alfred Collins as soon as this next block of practices, which I think is going to be tremendously exciting for the 49ers defensive line. He had shoulder surgery early in the offseason and has been on PUP to begin this training camp, but he was already working off on the side very conspicuously because he's a big guy, 6'7", Alfred Collins, getting ready to go. All right, guys, I am ready for your questions. Kenny Hamilton saying, where's Demarcus Robinson been? He's been out on the field. You say you haven't heard about him practicing. I did report that he was one of the receivers who made it out to Nashville to work with Brock Purdy just a couple weeks ago. So Demarcus Robinson, the veteran, is with the 49ers wearing the number 7. He actually was in there helping the quarterbacks with their early drills the first 2 practices because he's a veteran not working on special teams. So he's able to catch some passes from the QBs. And Demarcus Robinson is a valuable backup because he's the top backup essentially at every single position, including the X. He could play the X, which he did to great effectiveness against the Philadelphia Eagles in the playoffs last year. Is Jacob Robinson healthy and ready to follow up on last season's intriguing preseason? Yes, the second-year cornerback out of BYU broke his forearm during last preseason, is healthy, and is competing over the course of this training camp. Here's another question from Ryan. Is Keon White going to get many snaps in pass rush? Can he be the guy the Pats thought they were getting? Well, I think he was already an impressive player for the 49ers last season. I mean, we saw Keon deliver, 19 pressures in a relatively short period of time for the 49ers. So I think that Keon White can be very, very good for the 49ers. I also think that they love his adaptability. They think that he can rush from the inside and from the outside. And given the ambitious plans of the new defensive coordinator, Raheem Morris, there's a lot of value in that. He wants to be very adaptable as a defense. Out of all the rookies, which one tickles your fancy? I love the language there. Dejon Stribbling has been everywhere so far over 2 practices. He might be the fastest guy on the team. He's caught everything. Mike compared him to T.O., and then he deleted the tweet. I've given Mike a hard time about that because too many trolls were giving him a hard time. That was back during the spring. The comparison was accurate in as far as his mannerisms. I mean, the guy walks around like Terrell Owens. He's 6'3". He's a big receiver. He's a fast receiver. Probably the least accurate part of that comparison when you compare him to a young T.O. is that he doesn't drop the football. He only dropped 1 ball at Ole Miss last year. So I told Mike he should have kept that tweet up because he is reminding me of a very young Terrell Owens at this point. Now, whether or not he develops into something like that, that remains to be seen. But I think that people should be very, very excited about Dejon Stribbling so far. Is there any chance that Junior Bergen gets a chance as a return man this year? Yes. But if he doesn't make the team as a receiver, it's going to be hard for Junior Bergen to make the 53 because there are limited spots. Now, he did catch a long touchdown the other day, which I thought was exciting. He caught it from Curtis Rourke to end practice. So Junior Bergen, he's still on the team because he's got a shot to at least be like a backup punt returner that you can call up from the practice squad, which is essentially what he was last year. I think that Kalon Black has juice. It's going to be hard for me to firmly evaluate running backs until the preseason games because they can't really break tackles since they can't be tackled to the ground right now. How is Little Lombardi doing? Yes, it was an unforeseen draft pick. Little Lombardi is doing very well. She's in the room next door. Little Lombardi right now living in San Francisco. So is Margot. So both of them are doing well. And right after we're done here, we're about to have some good dinner. But we are over 3 months now. Quite crazy how time flies at this point. How is Michael Williams' rehab coming along? Michael Williams, I saw him the other day doing some lunges, which I think is a good sign if he's coming off of an ACL. I would say Michael's younger than Nick Bosa, but he also got hurt 6 weeks after Nick Bosa. Both were ACL tears. They said that Michael's was relatively clean, and he's back, right? He's rehabbing hard, and now he's going to be back on the field at some point for the 49ers. I don't know exactly when, but, Bosa, it looks like nothing ever happened to him. All I know is that Michael's 6 weeks behind, but who knows what Bosa looked like 3 weeks ago since he looks so good right now. How does Ephesians Prysock look in training camp? Tall, long. A lot of these rookies, they're buried right now on the 3rd team. They haven't really even had a chance to flash much yet. They're drinking out of a fire hose, as we like to say, when it comes to rookies in the NFL. So check back in a couple weeks once training camp has really gotten a good chance to roll. And then somebody like Bryson Eason, undrafted free agent out of Tennessee, is a defensive tackle. Pad's not even on yet. So it's even harder to judge some of these linemen early in their training camps. Mike just sent me a cool little video. Let me see what Mike sent me. Oh, it's a video from we could play this. A little video from practice. Who doesn't love a sizzle reel? Those are often fun to play on shows like this. Oops, I did not mean to play that. I'm going to get the sizzle reel up for you guys, though, here from Mike. So what do we have? We've got Brock Purdy. This is from the 49ers, by the way. There's Bryson Eason, 67. There's Jake Tonjes, Christian McCaffrey. That was Jordan Watkins, 17. It's a fast-moving sizzle reel. That, I believe, was Jack Jones, number 25. There's Nick Bosa. Jair Brown had an interception the other day. I think I saw Tatum Bethune and Fred Warner at the end of it. That was a good sizzle reel. That was quality stuff. I've obviously posted a lot of video content of my own. I think it's been a fast start to 49ers training camp. I think there have been good, energetic vibes out on the field. Kyle Shanahan has even gotten to watch some of those. And at the end of the day, Kyle Shanahan comes out of today looking even better after being man enough to step up and admit guilt, even if he didn't have to, even if it was an accident. So, if you're into the whole vibe thing around the 49ers, those probably went up today, because I thought that was a very courageous and admirable thing for Kyle Shanahan to do. We had a lot of people on the conspiracy front over the course of this whole offseason, probably fed by Brandon Aiyuk, who had some very distasteful remarks about Kyle Shanahan that I will not share on this show. I think that we all feared that it would get to the point where Brandon Aiyuk chimed in on the accident. I do not think that he should be platformed anymore. And, Ian Rappaport came out and said what I've been saying here over the past couple of weeks. It's no longer about whether or not Brandon Aiyuk signs with the football team. It's not about football anymore. It's what Steve Young said a few weeks ago. This is about, is Brandon Aiyuk okay as a person? And I think what he put out there today probably further fuels the speculation that he isn't, that it just was not good. And Adam Peters, I thought, essentially said, without mentioning Brandon Ayuk's name today, that they wouldn't sign him even if he were available. The press conference for Washington. So it's been a wild several weeks. And if we fast forward to what happened with today's Shanahan meeting with us reporters in there and that accident, I think everybody probably should be thankful that Shanahan is going to recover and that the other driver was not hurt. Above all else, that is what is most important. And the fact that we got to that end goal is going to be good. And Shanahan is still recovering, by the way. So we haven't gotten to that end goal, but he says that he's feeling better essentially every day. There could be some regressions with the concussion. Still tough to watch a lot of film at once. But I think Kyle Shanahan is improving. He says it's way better than 2 weeks ago. He showed us a picture of what he looked like on the hospital bed. It was brutal. The gash almost took out his eye. He was unrecognizable. It was ghastly. It was horrific. So he credited the plastic surgeon for doing a lot of good work. I'm going to play one more sizzle reel. I got you. This is Brock Purdy. That is Christian McCaffrey. There's Dejon Stribbling. This is the speed that I'm talking about. Catch and run touchdown for Dejon Stribbling. There's Kalon Black. A lot of you have been asking about him. There's Ricky Pearsall. That was his catch and run touchdown. He's been looking good. More Stribbling. They've got that blur effect on. Well, that's Patrick Taylor Jr. Missed last season with a fracture. There's Mike Evans, the big fella. That's a good end to the sizzle reel for the 49ers. And then here, this is Adam Peters. This is something you got to play for all delusional Washington Commanders fans who have thought that Brandon Aiyuk was going to be signed to their team. If it plays.
Just in a general sense, as you're always looking to improve the team, when you're evaluating guys to maybe bring in for workouts, whatever, what role, if any, does kind of a player's social media have in that evaluation process?
That's a good roundabout question.
Badass you are. Straight badass right there.
But no, we look at everything, JP. It's a great question, but we do look at everything, and we want to make sure it's the right player to be in our locker room, in our bloodstream, and in our culture, and we often we look at that stuff. It's not always the first thing we look at. Obviously, you're looking at the tape and you talk to the teams that the players have been on, and how they were in the locker room, the players that have played with them, and so on and so forth to make those decisions. But that's not usually a huge part of it. Usually.
Well played. Both of you.
So essentially, I think Adam Peters said even if this guy were available, which he's not because he hasn't even filed for reinstatement, he doesn't actually want to play. But if he was available and he actually wanted to play, if he did more than just talk about it, I don't think that the Commanders would sign him because it doesn't seem like he fits the character requirements of a player that they'd want to bring into their locker room. And I think that today's very, very distasteful posts, I'm not going to platform them. If you really want to go look at them, you can. They're up on Instagram. Today's very distasteful post from Brandon Aiyuk only hammer home the point. Just in case people thought teams didn't care, they absolutely do. There's way too much on the line to not care at all. And, you know, Aiyuk hasn't delivered high-level football in, 2 years? Really more than 2 years. He wasn't any good at the start of 2024. So he's not worth that headache. That's for sure. He would have to prove, he might have to prove if he ever wants to come back, if he was even able to come back in a lower league at this point. And then he would also have to conduct himself in a more professional manner to make people forget about what has happened over the course of the past month or so. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. It's been fun. It's time to eat dinner. We'll talk to everybody soon.